Hello once again. Do you know what makes me really exasperated? It's the ignorance of the masses and the true ignorance of many leaders, Trump specifically. Although, to be honest, Starmer is just as bad, if not worse, along with most government leaders in Europe. And classical history tells us that hubris is always followed by nemesis. And hubris is the overconfidence, brashness, and arrogance of people or regimes showing off their power. And nemesis is their downfall. And many empires in the past have ended this way. And I'm afraid America is no exception. And any great leader knows that he or she must listen to its generals. And having yes men is certainly not the way. And history stands for everyone to read, but most people don't or are too lazy to do so. And Trump just recently came up with some classics in his speech. He said that Spain was a member of BRICS. And I'm sorry, BRICS, that's a community about money and a different thing from the US dollar. And Spain definitely is not a member of BRICS. And Trump also said that Russia lost 65 million people in World War II. That's not true either. The true number, although really not known exactly, is around 27 million. 9 million soldiers and the rest were civilians, mostly starved to death during Operation Barbarossa. And 1 million Soviet Jews died as part of the Holocaust. And more people died on the Eastern Front than any other battles across the world at that time. 1,800 Soviet towns and 70,000 villages were destroyed completely and razed from this earth. And that was by the Germans with astounding cruelty of the occupants, by orders from the High Command to take no prisoners. But Germany did take prisoners. But many of those prisoners ended up in concentration camps and died anyway. And another figure involved in the massacres that not many people know about was a guy called Stefan Bandera in Poland, involving thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of victims. And the incredible thing is, Stefan Bandera is still to this day looked upon as a hero in parts of Ukraine. And there is a street in Kiev named after him to this very, very day. Look it up. Now, I can thoroughly recommend reading Alan Clark's version of Barbarossa. It's a harrowing account of the brutality of war and, of course, its futility. And it can be bought online for around £4 and really worth reading. It's incredible. And then Trump, he went on to say that Russia had lost 1 million troops in Ukraine. And then he downgraded it to 700,000. And Ukraine had lost only 200,000. Well, the truth is probably the opposite to that, although neither side will admit to any figures. But it will eventually be told, I'm sure. And America, along with many people in Europe, still believe America and the Allied forces won World War II with the invasion. It's a lie. Had Hitler not deployed most of his troops on the Eastern Front, and lost half of them in the process. The Allies, along with America, would have most certainly lost the war in Europe and North Africa. And England would now be speaking German, with Hermann Göring family still occupied in Saltwood Castle. And Hermann Göring had claimed the castle as his prize when Germany won the war. And ironically, one of the best, if not the most barbaric historical accounts of Barbarossa was written by Alan Clark, who inherited Saltwood Castle from his father. It originally belonged to Lord Clark and was actually famous for where the plot took place to assassinate Thomas à Becket. And indeed they did. And it is still owned to this very day by the Clark family, and sadly open only very rarely to the public. And all this information is documented in a diary about the real Dad's Army, written by a Colonel Rodney Foster, and available online for around $1.99, especially on Kindle. You can read it for free. Thanks to Russia, the Germans failed, and Göring never got to own Saltwood Castle. And Russia's resistance and their final march into Berlin, not forgetting their liberation of Auschwitz along the way, won the war. And that fact is certainly worth remembering. So Trump needs to brush up on his history, or perhaps employ someone who doesn't. Bullshit can and does baffle brains, but not when the whole world is reading history books. And my last 3 videos, including this one, are about lies and deception, but by history and its propaganda. And just remember, the first casualty of war is always the truth. And in his book, Mein Kampf, the man with the funny moustache talked of something called grobe Lüge, which when translated means the big lie. And he was referring, of course, to the propaganda king Joseph Goebbels and his campaign to spread hate among a certain group of people. And history is witness to what happened. And the main point of this video is I'll leave a link to a short video by a KGB defector called Yuri Bezmenov, talking about subversion of whole countries. And it is, if you look at it properly, it's a stark reminder of Tony Blair's campaign of education, education, education. What he really meant was indoctrination, indoctrination, indoctrination. And I'll leave a link to this video under more, and you'll understand what has happened to our once Great Britain. And of course, many other countries that have been infiltrated by the same subversion via the back door of the EU and the World Economic Forum. So I'll keep this brief. Thanks for listening to an old man in a chair with a sense of humour. Because if you don't have a sense of humour, you'll die crying. And happy days will soon come, I'm sure. Just like in Fairyland and Alice in Wonderland. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.